Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's AWS Tech Talk, where we will go over how you can achieve ML-powered analytics within Tableau by leveraging the power of Amazon SageMaker and machine learning. I'm Kostis Vasilakakis, and I lead the go-to-market strategy of SageMaker as it pertains to all integrations and partnerships. And today, I'm joined by Nathan Mannheimer and Holt Calder. Nathan, how about introducing yourself?
Hey everyone, great to be here. Like Kostis said, my name is Nathan Mannheimer. I'm Director of Data Science and Machine Learning Products at Tableau. That means I get to work on a lot of really cool technologies and techniques where we're helping our customers and our partners like SageMaker integrate predictions and advanced analysis into Tableau and use Tableau as a pathway to get those insights into the hands of the business.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Holt, how about yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Holt Calder. I'm a data architect with Interworks and here today to talk to you about Amazon SageMaker for Tableau as the lead developer on that group. So really excited to be here. Thank you for joining.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen. Now let's see what we will cover today. So we will start with first of all, with the promise and the fundamental issues of enabling machine learning powered predictive analytics across the organization. And there has been a lot of discussion of how customers can do that. And there has been also discussion about the impediments of our customers not being able to really fully materialize that vision. So we'll cover those two, and then we will walk you through our Amazon SageMaker for Tableau solution, how it works, and what are some of the most common use cases we have heard from our customers using it for. Then we'll go through a demo of the 3 steps that are required to make use of our integration. First of all, we'll go through the deployment of the integration, where Holt will guide us. Then we'll build a model with Amazon SageMaker Autopilot, where I'll go through a demo of Autopilot. And then Nathan will use the model I'll create on Autopilot and the integration that Holt will deploy right within the Tableau environment to make ML-powered predictions. And lastly, we will offer some guidance on how you can get started and how you can get help. And just keep in mind, we're aiming to have an about 40-minute presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions. But as you see at the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A area where we have live moderation throughout the session. So the Q&A will happen in the end through the same live moderation on the Q&A box below. So feel free to use it at the beginning or at the end. We have our AWS employees addressing questions on the fly. Nathan, how about we kick it off and how about you help us level set on what we believe is the true promise of the ML-powered predictive analytics?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kosti. So over the last 10 or so years, we've really seen a revolution in how businesses consume, share, and make decisions on information and on the data that they collect and generate. Business intelligence and especially visual analytics has really democratized access to that data and allowed orders of magnitude more people to understand their work, understand their business, understand their customers, and really drive more effective, more informed business decision making. This is where Tableau has been a leader in the space of helping people better access their data, helping more people get involved, get their hands on it, better understand the state of the world and the way things have looked historically, and start to interrogate, process, understand, and present and share and communicate the insights that they've discovered, the meaningful value they've generated on top of the raw data that they have at their disposal. And increasingly, as organizations get comfortable with that wider access to information, that more robust ability to explore, to ask new questions, to socialize and communicate answers, they look to the future and want to take the same ability to explore and process and communicate and ask forward-looking questions, ask things about what might happen as conditions change, as the world evolves, as new data becomes accessible. can we better understand what might happen next and use that information to plan, to make better decisions, to better allocate resources, to ensure a better, faster customer experience? And so into this space, we have the real power of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and statistical modeling to help us take the data that we have, better understand it, and then use it to answer questions about what might happen in the future. And this has been driven by a really powerful surge in the technology, the algorithmic understanding, and the scale at which we can operate in the computational space. So we have technology like GPU compute, improved algorithms, better access to data, and really even just more and more raw data at our disposal, which is combined to create this environment where generating machine learning models has become more realistic for more and more organizations, more and more companies, people who want to drive better business, better serve their customers. And so when we pair the ubiquity of business intelligence and Tableau visual analytics with the customer need to ask questions about the future, to better understand their world and make predictions, and the power and the technology that we have in AWS SageMaker and really the ability to do machine learning at scale, we start to develop this really powerful promise for how we can deliver the next stage of analytics and make that something that is accessible to more people than ever before. And so Kosti, we talked a lot about the promise, but I'm going to turn it back over to you because it's a grand vision, but there are certainly some challenges along the way. And let's look a little bit more into those.
Certainly. And I 100% agree with the promise here. It's very big, but as you may already know, ML-powered predictive analytics are not that easy to materialize, and there is quite some reason about it. But first and foremost, I'd like to start with the fact that we have noticed there's, in many organizations, a gap between the data scientist persona and the business users. Even if those two roles might be in the same line of business, we have noticed that the data scientists are not necessarily directly partnering with all the stakeholders from the business side. And usually those two personas work with completely different set of tools. So for the data scientists to expose their models or predictions, they would have to either store their predictions in a database that the business has access to, or they would have to create a completely separate application, or even actually connect their models into completely manually and in an internal application that the business consumes. And we have also heard from our customers that due to this gap of technologies, the partnership between the two personas has been getting very limited with regards to ad hoc requests only. And that's predominantly because there is a lead time from request to request, because data scientists have to go through model development, prediction, and then the predictions have to be stored either to the database we discussed or to be connected with the application that the business consumes. And this is not a matter of minutes or hours, it's a matter of days or weeks. So we hardly see in our customers any real-time or even same-day predictions coming into the business powered by ML. And lastly, it all comes down to the fact that the data scientists, in a way these days, are quite scarce of a resource, making the creation of models an exercise that is bound in the amount of the data scientist a team actually employs. But because we believe in the full promise of ML-powered predictive analytics, we actually decided to partner with Tableau, and we aim to help alleviate many of those impediments that I describe here with a solution that we're about to present. So Nathan, how about you help describe to our audience the solution we brought to market, and which one that we will be also demoing live in a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. And so to understand the solution here, we really want to look at three different components of this process. First, we have a real goal in this work of making it accessible and easy to get started with, even though we're plugging together components that are doing some really interesting and sometimes very complex work. We want to make the configuration and the ability to get started as smooth and seamless and push button as possible. And so to do that, we're using the AWS technology Quick Starts. This allows us to essentially combine in the most effective way a number of different Amazon Web Services into one package that we can initiate very easily with only a minimal configuration by the user. So the user can essentially take this Quick Start off the shelf and get going with just the push of a button and a little bit of extra information provided. And by initializing the Quick Start, they're able to configure SageMaker, configure all of the services that are required for authentication, for logging, for storage, and provision all of that on Amazon so that they can then start connecting to models, start generating predictions, and then deploy those models and plug them into Tableau. And so to do that, they're working on Amazon SageMaker, which is a platform for deploying predictive modeling at scale that can be done with data science teams using code, or now increasingly for more business analysts, users embedded with the actual business functions to start building models of their own using automated machine learning or AutoML. And this SageMaker Autopilot technology allows a real democratization of access to the ability to build, test, and deploy predictive machine learning models, to understand those models, to be able to share and inform data science teams if they have questions about the deployment, but to really be able to go through that process from business problem to idea to data set to model and eventually to consumption much more quickly. And when they're able to deploy those models into production, they can then consume them directly in Tableau. So all they have to know is the name of the endpoint that they've deployed, and they can connect it right into a Tableau dashboard or visualization, provide the appropriate data from Tableau, and then drop the predictions from that model into a visualization, just like they'd use any other calculation in Tableau. So leveraging Tableau's Analytics Extensions API, we can communicate directly between SageMaker models and Tableau visualizations and really take visualizations in Tableau to the next level by using real-time predictions on live data that can be connected right into a Tableau visualization. So anything that you can view in Tableau today, you can connect to predictions and start running those, and then use Tableau's own ability to scale up using Tableau Server or online to publish those dashboards to hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of users and allow them all to ask questions, to explore, to get their hands on predictions, and really start using those as they would any other visual analytics to really run their business better, make better decisions, make those faster, and access them where they're accessing their business information today, whether it's through the browser, on desktop, on mobile. So together, these three technologies, the Quick Start that ties everything together, SageMaker, which allows for scalable and accessible building of machine learning models, and Tableau, which brings data and brings insight to people all across the business, from a CEO to a development manager to a frontline sales rep. We have this really powerful ability to actually take data, turn it into predictive analytics, and then democratize and share that analysis across an organization and really go from a data set to a working solution in a matter of hours or days. So we have this really powerful potential that is addressing that last mile gap, getting the predictions to the people who need them, is allowing the ability to iterate and develop machine learning solutions quickly, get predictions out in real time on live data, and really help alleviate some of that challenge in a limited access to data science resources. This means more people can get involved, start working, but still have a completely auditable and accessible trail of their work to share if it needs to be reviewed by a data scientist or data science team or leadership. So let's take a look now at just a quick sneak peek of how this all works. So here, you're going to see us build a Tableau calculation that's calling out to a predictive endpoint in SageMaker, passing live data from Tableau. We can just add that calculation to the visualization. And in just a second or two, start to see predictions, in this case, whether customers will churn or stay with the business, added to the visualization in real time. And now we've added this to a dashboard that allows us to interact with and explore and find interesting trends or patterns based on those predictions. In this case, how international calling and the expense of that impacts the likelihood of a customer to churn, and then publish and share that dashboard out with a large number of users who have an interest in its results, and use that dashboard essentially as a front-end application for that predictive model. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Kosti to talk about some of the customer scenarios where we see real value with this solution.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nathan. And one quick point I wanted our audience to be very clear on is that the art of possible with this solution and the number of use cases one can solve with this is really, really vast. I'm going to describe a couple of them, but at the end of the day, any problem that you have that has tabular data set and is can be represented in the Tableau dashboard can be enabled with this solution to embed ML-powered predictions using what we're describing here. And as you think about, for example, propensity to buy a product which resembles very much the lead quality scoring use case that we will be showing, and that can help any sales team, no matter the industry, to prioritize their attention on the opportunities that make the most sense. But the list doesn't stop here. For example, we'll see today churn prediction, or in other ways called predictive engagement, are very common use cases our customers have been bringing up and are indeed applicable to big variety of industries. So churn prediction is quite applicable from the financial services all the way to healthcare, all the way to software and internet and retail. So we're excited to actually be covering this today, and we'll dive deeper on how you can build it yourself. And then you can think of the credit risk prediction, where our customers can evaluate an individual's risk profile completely on the fly, or even the whole portfolio's risk, just embedded into the visualization, have ML-powered predictions of how my book is doing, or how this individual, what is the risk profile that my model is predicting. Then there is the demand and revenue forecasting, where our customers can predict what is the anticipated revenues, or what is the anticipated cost, and what will the future be in terms of the sales of a specific product or a whole line of business. Or there's also the hospital capacity and the patient readmission problem our customers from the healthcare space have been bringing up quite frequently, where with this integration, they can quickly analyze and optimize how many beds will be needed by when, all within a single dashboard. And as I said, the art of possible is very vast, and would love to know how actually this integration can help you. So feel free to just ping us below or email us after to understand how this might solve your own problems. But now let's shift towards the demo and the 3 steps that are included in for you to be able to use the end-to-end solution. So here we demonstrate on the high level the 3 steps that we will cover today. And in step 1, where Holt will help us here, we'll go through the integration deployment that happens via a very easy to use AWS Quick Start. This step will allow us to deploy certain resources, and actually Holt will be able to describe what are some of the tips and tricks that you need to know as you are going to deploy the solution. And this is what will pretty much allow us to connect SageMaker and Tableau. But important to note here is the fact that this step is needed only once. So once an organization deploys it in the environment you have your models on, then you don't need to deploy it again. And then going towards the step 2, the step 2 involves the creation of the machine learning model within SageMaker. And this is again an optional step if you already have models deployed in SageMaker. But in case you don't, we'll walk you through how to leverage our AutoML capability that is called SageMaker Autopilot to create an ML model, even if you're new to data science. And finally, all the magic will come in step 3. We will do a demo, and actually Nathan will do a demo on how you can use the model that I create in SageMaker to make predictions within Tableau via the deployed integration that Holt will deploy. And keep in mind that you can use either the Tableau server, the desktop, or even the online version to get your real-time predictions. Lastly, in today's demo, we'll focus on a very ubiquitous problem I just described, which is the customer churn prediction. And spotting unhappy customers and offering them the right engagement and the incentives is a quite ubiquitous problem. So today we'll show you how you can proactively go about predicting those churn moments with a Tableau dashboard and integrations. Now I'll pass it on to Holt, that we will dive deeper on the quick start based integration. But before we dive deeper on the deployment, Holt, do you mind going over the reference architecture of the solution, so for the technical folks out there to be able to deeper understand how this works?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kosti. As Kosti just mentioned, we're going to walk through architecture really quickly to just look at how the Amazon SageMaker for Tableau integration is actually deployed into your AWS account. Looking at the reference architecture, the quick start is going to launch a CloudFormation template into your AWS account. The customer and end user will enter through a calculated field in the Tableau Desktop or Tableau Server application. And from there, the data will be sent into a suite of resources that create the integration and produce inference results from Amazon SageMaker. If you look at the architecture diagram here, everything contained in the Quick Start Resources pane is going to be the primary API using the Analytics Extension API framework that powers the integration. After data is sent through the Amazon API Gateway service, it is translated using Lambda functions to the necessary format to invoke your SageMaker endpoints. These things all communicate via a VPC endpoint that is deployed into your account. And basic authentication is handled using Amazon Cognito and a Lambda authorizer through the API Gateway service. If you look at the solution and how the Quick Start is deployed, the necessary IAM permissions are created that allow the integration to connect to any SageMaker model endpoint in your AWS account. And it allows you to govern and authorize users using Cognito by signing up and signing in different user accounts for different users who will be utilizing the integration and producing dashboards with SageMaker Insights. Now, let's see how we can actually go and deploy this into our AWS account. And we're going to jump into our demo.
We're going to get started on the Quick Start page for the solution. Here we have some information about Amazon SageMaker for Tableau. We have a description of everything that's going to be launched through the Quick Start, an architecture diagram, the deployment options, along with some information about the costs and licenses that could be associated with launching the solution. What we're going to focus on here is the deployment options. So Tableau, Amazon SageMaker for Tableau is actually available in 3 different launch configurations. We could deploy the solution into a new VPC that the CloudFormation template would create for us. We could actually deploy the solution into an existing VPC if your organization already has a VPC in your Amazon Web Services account that is kind of the standard. You're able to utilize that existing VPC. And then we could also deploy the solution not into a VPC at all. So for this example, we are going to deploy into an existing VPC. I'm just going to select this hyperlink, and it will actually launch the CloudFormation console inside of my AWS account. So here we have the template for our Amazon SageMaker for Tableau solution. I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and we can go ahead and start filling in the parameters for our launch configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a different name. I'm just going to call this demo US East 1. And then we will go in and configure our VPC parameters. So what we're going to do is select that we would like to launch this into an existing VPC or into a VPC. And what we'll do now is we will select the VPC ID that we would like to launch the solution into. Kind of building out from here, what we'll do is actually open up our VPC console so that we can retrieve the subnet IDs that we would like to launch the solution into. So I'm going to go ahead and open the VPC console. And we will go and grab those subnet IDs here in a little bit. So we'll just select this one. We want to get the ID here, go to subnets, and we just want to confirm that the subnets we select in our CloudFormation console are for the correct VPC. So we have a FD here. We'll want to select we'll just pick some subnets here. Just make sure that they're from the correct console. So we'll select that. So 982, you can see that that's for the correct VPC. We'll do 937 as well. Great. So that will be our subnet configuration. And what we will do now is actually move into the part of the parameters that are specific to Amazon SageMaker for Tableau. What we're going to do is select a hosted zone ID. So the two requirements for Amazon SageMaker for Tableau are that you need to have a domain name that is hosted in Amazon Route 53, and you need to have a certificate attached to that domain. And that certificate needs to be provisioned in the US East 1 region. So here is where we will actually pass that information into our quick start CloudFormation template. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the hosted zone ID, and this is going to be the domain that I have in my AWS account for the solution. And then what I'm going to do is select a fully qualified domain name. So I'm actually just going to type this here with a prefix that I want to deploy the Amazon SageMaker for Tableau solution to. So what I'm going to call this is Tech Talk US East Demo. And then I'm going to add a period, so that will be my prefix. And then I'm going to type that domain name that we see below. Now that we have added the domain name, what we're going to want to add is the ARN of our certificate, which is hosted in Amazon Certificate Manager. I'm just going to type Certificate Manager above, and we will open that console in a new tab, and we'll go and retrieve that ARN of the certificate that we've provisioned in US East 1. So we will select the certificate, and what we're going to want to do is just grab this ARN here. So I'm going to copy it and bring it back over to our CloudFormation console. I'm going to give that ARN to the certificate ARN parameter. And from there, we can leave these quick start parameters alone. These are just going to be the default parameters that point to the assets in the quick start, which are in a publicly accessible S3 bucket. So now that we've filled in all of our parameters, the VPC parameters, as well as our Route 53 domain name and our certificate ARN, we can move through the rest of the steps to deploy the stack. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next here, and we're on the review screen. What I'm going to do is just scroll down and select that all of these settings and capabilities are allowed. So I'm just going to acknowledge these, give them the check mark, and then I'll select Create Stack. And it will actually begin to deploy into my AWS account now. So Amazon SageMaker for Tableau is kicking off. I'll pause and resume the recording as soon as it's complete. Great, and as you can see, our solution has just finished deploying. So on the left-hand side, when we look at our stacks, we have that flag that says the create was complete. We can look at the details of the CloudFormation templates, outputs, and resources. So we can look at everything that was created as a part of the quick start. This is all going to correspond one-to-one to the architecture diagram on the quick start homepage. And what we'll really want to focus on now are the outputs here. So we do have a link to a post-deployment steps. This is going to be the quick start deployment guide. For this example, what we're going to want to do is actually sign up a user. So we will open this link in a new tab. It's going to take us to a Cognito URL, where at this point we could sign up a user, and that user would be able to access and use the solution and connect to SageMaker from their Tableau dashboards. Jumping back into the CloudFormation console, this URL that we specified when we launched the CloudFormation template is going to be the URL that we're able to access SageMaker from within Tableau.
So now that we've deployed the integration, I want to call out a few tips and tricks that will make this process easier for you as you get started with Amazon SageMaker for Tableau. Before launching the quick start, review the deployment guide so that you ensure that you have all of the necessary prerequisites and understanding of the services that are going to be deployed. A quick tip that will help you from getting stopped in the deployment process is to make sure that you provision your ACM certificate in the US East 1 region, and make sure that you launch the integration into a VPC that is accessible from your Tableau environment and is able to access your SageMaker environment. Verify that the security group created in the quick start conforms to your VPC security policies. And a tip that I like to call out for customers is to deploy the solution to a subdomain, as it will allow you to use a wildcard cert on a domain that your organization already owns instead of procuring a specific domain just for the integration. Now I'll pass on to Kosti to talk us through how you can create an ML model using the AutoML capabilities of SageMaker Autopilot.
Awesome. Thank you, Holt. Great demo. So with regards to Amazon SageMaker, in general, I want to make sure that our audience out there has a level set understanding of what SageMaker is and how you can go about using it, especially with regards to building some models and building some models quickly. So Amazon SageMaker is the most complete end-to-end service for machine learning. It is a managed service for data scientists, citizen data scientists, data engineers, and ML operations teams that helps remove all the differentiated heavy lifting associated with machine learning. And first off, as you see on the upper part of the screen, SageMaker provides users with an integrated workbench of tools brought together in one single pane of glass, which is called SageMaker Studio. And users can launch Jupyter notebooks and Jupyter Lab environments instantly through the SageMaker Studio. And from the same environment, users can get access to a complete set of features around data preparation, model development, training and tuning, experiment management, debugging, deployments, and pipeline automation to actually help all the personas in the ML lifecycle be a lot more productive. Secondly, though, and this is where our focus will be today, SageMaker offers an AutoML capability called Autopilot. Now, why people love Autopilot? It's because it automatically builds, trains, and tunes the best machine learning models based on your data, while allowing you to maintain full control and visibility. Building a machine learning model requires you to manually prepare features, test multiple algorithms, and optimize hundreds of different model parameters in order to find the best feature engineering pipeline, as well as model for your own data. However, this approach usually requires deep ML expertise, and that's where the workbench I just described above fits right in. If you don't have the expertise, though, you could use an automated approach like AutoML, and that's where the SageMaker Autopilot really shines. It eliminates the heavy lifting of building ML models by providing such AutoML capabilities, allowing pretty much everyone out there to build ML models with just a few clicks. But let's see how it works exactly. So as I mentioned, Amazon SageMaker Autopilot makes the ML process a lot easier and a lot faster. So you can build classification and regression models by just providing two things: a tabular dataset and a target attribute. And that's it. It's that simple. Then what Autopilot does, it automatically analyzes your dataset, like any data scientist would do an exploratory data analysis, and then explores all the machine learning solutions with different combinations of data preprocessors, algorithms, and hyperparameters to find the best combination of those, as well as the best model and hyperparameters. Instead of requiring you actually to decide what feature engineering to do, what algorithm do you use, and what hyperparameter will work best for your model, Autopilot does all of those things that the data science would do completely automatically with just one click. And in the end, it will present you with a leaderboard of all the combinations it actually considered, and will show you the best performing models at the top. Then you can quickly evaluate if you want to deploy the best or second best. You can evaluate them all, and then with a single click of a button, you can deploy it to an endpoint. So I will showcase in just a second. You'll be able to see all the different combinations it run, how they performed based on the objective metric that it decided is appropriate, as well as, if you want, you can even see all the code and inspect it. But of course, that's only if you want. So for our citizen data scientists and ML enthusiasts out there, today I'll showcase how to trigger an autopilot job, and then how to quickly deploy the best performing model. So let's switch to our AWS console. Here we first enter the platform, and we navigate to SageMaker, and more specifically, we will navigate to the SageMaker Studio. Then we will, which will take us to the Jupyter Lab environment that you get through the studio experience. And in today's session, we'll go over and search for within the Amazon SageMaker examples for the Autopilot examples that is focusing on customer churn. So if you open the notebook environment on customer churn, here the first thing you'll see is the description of the problem. And of course, losing customers is a very costly endeavor, and usually it's better to identify those customers early on and give them the right incentives instead of actually spending money to acquire new customers. So here we're gonna focus on this customer churn use case, and we'll first set up the environment. We'll run our first line of code to get access to the SageMaker libraries. And then we'll get access to a couple of standardized pandas and NumPy libraries as well to be able to download the data. Here we're downloading some open source discovery knowledge in data set where you can always access also for free. And then if we open the data set we just downloaded, you'll see in a descriptive analysis here, we can see the state, we can see the account length, the area code, how many minutes during the day the customer spoke, how many calls per day, how many evening calls, etc., which we will use in the model. But in the end, you'll also see the churn variable where we're going to try to predict today, both with the Autopilot, but also in the Tableau integration. So we'll go down and we'll split the data set in 80-20 so that we have 80% of the data set for training and 20% of the data set to be able to test this within Tableau. Here I'm doing the randomizer on 80% of the data, and then I'll upload those into an S3 bucket, which I'm just going to copy. So I'll take this training data set and I'll navigate towards the Autopilot experience. So we go here on the left of the studio, we'll open the SageMaker components, and under experiments and trials, you'll see create experiment. We'll go create an experiment, and we'll name this, we'll give it a name. Then we'll use the data, the training data I just created in this S3 bucket. So we'll copy the S3 bucket we'll give it as a data set. And then we'll also give it the target attribute, which is the churn question mark. So we give it a training data set, give it a target variable, and we just tell it to, okay, use this S3 bucket for output. You can give any S3 bucket. Here you also see that you can select if you want Autopilot to go through an automatic identification of the problem, or you say, oh, this is actually a binary classification, which actually is churn, yes or no, true or false, or it is a regression or a multi-class classification. But because we believe Autopilot is smart enough, we'll use the auto. And of course, there's other more advanced capabilities with regards to giving certain permissions, selecting how many combinations you want this Autopilot to select, but we'll go with the vanilla case here. So we'll press the create experiment, and it's all we need to do. Then Autopilot will go through the pre-processing, understanding what is the right candidate that it should explore, go through feature engineering, and then it will start producing different models that it actually has tuned and it has actually optimized for the right hyperparameters. So in the end, we'll get a list of a leaderboard of all the different options it considered, as well as a list of the performance it actually achieved. So here we achieved 0.96 in binary F beta score, which means it understood that it's a binary classification problem, although we didn't state that. So we'll go in the best option, the best alternative. And here you have a couple of options, either to inspect the model and understand what exactly it produced and why and which model it created, or you can decide to just simply deploy the model. And for convenience today, here we just go in the deployment states. Here you can use it either for real-time prediction or batch predictions, but given we want to offer real-time predictions in Tableau, we'll go with a real-time option. So in the real-time option, I'll give it a name to the real-time endpoint. And remember that endpoint, the customer churn endpoint, is what actually Nathan will use in the calculated field to make the predictions within Tableau. So we name the endpoint customer churn endpoint. We'll give a small instance because it's a small data set, and then we just deploy the model. So it's going to kick off the deployment process. And if we go in the endpoints, we will see the customer churn endpoint being created. So we'll refresh, and now the customer churn endpoint is in service. And we can proceed with actually using that endpoint within the Tableau environment. But before we get there, I'd love to give some tips and tricks about going about using Autopilot. So here I have some of the most common advice we give to our customers. First of all, always split your data set between 80-20, 70-30, 90-10, but always make sure that you're using a test data set that your models have not seen. Also, within Autopilot, you can use the explainability report to start building some trust, and so that you're able to understand what exactly the model is seeing as more important features than others. Also, keep note of the schema and the endpoint name I just described, because you will need those two within the calculated field in Tableau. And if you use a VPC, ensure that both the endpoint and the deployed integration that Holt walked us through are under the same VPC. So let's now go to the third step. Nathan, how about showcasing our audience how to use the model I just built to make ML-powered predictions within Tableau?
Awesome. To do that, let's start by jumping into Tableau Desktop. So here we are in Tableau Desktop, and we're looking at a normal Tableau visualization, in this case, a scatter plot where we're comparing individual customers in our telecom data set by the number of international calls they've made and the charge that they received for those calls. We can see that generally there's a trend downward, which means that as people have made more calls, they are getting charged less on average. But now let's add predictions to this data set so that we can better understand what's really going on here and how it's impacting our business. To do this, I would first go to configure the analytics extensions for SageMaker. So I go to Help, Settings and Performance, and Manage Analytics Extension Connection. To connect to SageMaker, I would choose the Analytics Extension API connection type, and then enter the information for my connector. In this case, a host name and a port, and a username and password credential. In this case, we're both requiring authentication through AWS and securing the connection with SSL. So now I'm ready to go and actually start using predictions in this analysis of this data set. So I've created this calculated field, churn prediction. And if I open it up here, I can see that I'm using what's called a script calculation in Tableau. And script calculations allow us to do a lot of really powerful and flexible things by connecting to analytics extensions. And so here, because we're connected to the SageMaker analytics extension, it means that using a script calculation allows us to return predictions from the model that we've just deployed in SageMaker. All I have to do is reference that customer churn endpoint and then pass the appropriate fields with the right level of aggregation from the Tableau dataset. I'm connected live to a version of this dataset, and I'm actually able to pass data in real time. But I could also be connected to an extract or published data source in Tableau, and this would work just the same. And by passing these fields, I don't have to preload them into another data source outside of where they natively reside. I'm able to pass them in real time to SageMaker and get inference from the model and return it to Tableau. So I've selected the appropriate fields and chosen my endpoint. So now I'm going to click OK and just take this predictive calculation and place it on color. And we're actually going to pass that data to the model and return the predictions, whether the customers are at risk of churning in orange or whether they're at low risk in gray. And so here we see something interesting pop up, that we saw that general trend down for customers overall, and that seems to hold for customers who aren't likely to churn. But the relationship is much more flat for customers who are predicted to be at risk of churning. So it seems like, on average, they're spending more money on international calls as the number of calls goes up. So there's an interesting beginning of an insight here. And I'm going to take this visualization and now put it in my dashboard that provides a historical and predictive view of the risk of churn in our data set. And now, if I select customers in that sort of upper right-hand section of the visualization, those customers who spent more on international calls, as their number of calls went up, we see that they're generally more at risk of churning. This includes customers who had an international plan as well as those who didn't. So we can see that in this case, based on our predictive model, having a plan doesn't have a significant impact, but that we have customers who are at risk in both groups and will want to develop a plan for making them, allowing them to have an easier path to stay with the business and potentially mitigate some of those increased costs to help them stay with our business. So I've built this dashboard. The dashboard is acting as a front end to the predictive model, but it's really not doing me any good unless I can communicate this insight out to my colleagues in the business. And so to do that, I'm going to jump over to Tableau Online. And I've published this dashboard up there where I can share it with my colleagues. And so here, we're in Tableau Online. And as a site administrator in Online, I've gone to the settings section of my site, and I've gone to extensions, and then configured the SageMaker extension via the Analytics Extensions API connection. So we're in good shape here. The connection is set up on my online site. So then I could publish that dashboard up and consume it directly through the browser and share it out to wherever people are consuming it, whether it's another browser or on mobile, and start to interact with it and share these insights. So we see here, I've highlighted that same selection that I made in desktop, and I've commented with a snapshot of the dashboard, allowing me to share that with my colleagues, Jim and Julie, discussing the problem or the interesting insight that I've uncovered based on the augmentation of the visualization with predictions, and then starting the process of coming up with a plan to take action. So in just a few clicks, I brought a predictive model into my visualization, uncovered an insight, and then shared that to where any number of people can see what I've seen or even go further and ask questions of their own. So this covers our entire end-to-end workflow in Tableau of integrating the model, publishing and sharing the results, and collaborating with teammates. So let's cover some tips and tricks for how to consume these predictions in Tableau. Because of the script calculation type, we're passing data from the Tableau visualization in real time to SageMaker. So it means that we need to construct a visualization that's at the right level of detail or the correct granularity of the data so that when we're passing it to the model, it's in the right format. In this case, we were predicting on individual customers who are characterized by a phone number. So when I broke the visualization up by phone number, it provided that correct level of detail for me to accurately apply the predictions. We also need all the variables in the training set to be used in the same way when we're actually making predictions. The only thing we don't need is the actual outcome because we don't know that yet. But all of the inputs to the model should be provided in the calculated field like you saw me create so that we can pass them to the model to generate that inference. But we don't necessarily need them in the visualization itself. This means that you can construct a visualization like you saw with not that many variables in it, but still pass a larger number through the calculation to the model. The type of calculations that we used, script calculations, are table calculations in Tableau, which means that they can be controlled in terms of how they partition and address the visualization. So as a recommendation, we would suggest to set all of the dimensions in the view onto addressing. This means going in and modifying the table count to ensure that there are no partitions. Because of the way that the script calcs work, they'll make a separate call to SageMaker for each different partition. And in the case of inference here, where we're just returning predictions from a fit model, there's really no advantage to doing that. And setting everything on addressing will improve the computational performance of the calculation. And finally, to actually deploy the results and share those out with your colleagues and teammates, You can deploy workbooks using analytics extensions in both Tableau Server, whether it's deployed on-premise or in a cloud provider like AWS, or via Tableau Online. All you have to do is go in and configure the connection like you saw me do, and then you can publish workbooks to enable consumption of predictions by the business at scale. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Kosti for some tips and advice on how to get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. So how can you get started? It's quite easy. Here in the first link, you can find the quick start itself that will help you deploy the integration with just a few clicks that Holt showcased. And if you're part of the business or a data scientist that doesn't have the privileges to deploy the integration, do get in touch with your IT admins to help. And as we discussed, this integration only needs to be deployed once. And if you are the IT admin, or you actually have the privilege to deploy this, you have a lot of supporting material other than the deployment guide that you will find in the quick start. We have built blogs, we have recorded demos, and you can find them in the second link that you see in the screen in the tableau.com solutions AWS. And last but not least, we'd love to hear from you. So if you have feedback or you actually need help from our technical teams, feel free to reach out at the SageMaker for Tableau at amazon.com. And we will help guide you with the right technical resources, as well as help guide you with any other additional questions you might have in terms of what use cases to use it to, or anything else you might need help with. And of course, don't forget, in the chat box below, you can use it, and you can ask any questions you have. We have live moderators responding throughout the hour, and we'll stay till the top of the hour. So that takes me to a big thank you to all of you for joining us. Would love to hear from you again, and either use our direct emails or get back to us on the email I just sent before. And I'd like to really thank Nathan and Holt for joining us today. It was great to have you, and we're very excited with what we built together. Thank you.